I think I texted my grandma. Shit.
I don't know enough about contract structures to weigh in there, but it seems like a way of keeping price down. Yeah.
In 2019, the first 24 players in the draft got all of their money guaranteed, but players 25th or below did not. So it's just like they just pushed it back this year, or more players got a guaranteed contract. I didn't realize that about first round contracts, that they were all guaranteed.
Yeah, most of them. All right, so we are officially live, just so you guys know. I don't think anyone's watching yet, but whatever.
Terrified.
I'm watching.
Oh, nice. All right, so I'll give it a couple seconds and then we'll get started.
Now, what is YouTube?
I believe it's a video service on the internet, but I'm not quite sure.
So it's like OnlyFans.
It's a tube. It's the tube where you can broadcast you.
Oh, I see. Thanks for explaining it.
Anyone.
I didn't quite
Please
put it together,
subscribe to me for exclusive content. You know, I think that would be pretty good. I think we should all start OnlyFans pages. I think that'd be really good.
I don't know if you want to monetize this body, but let's.
Well, Connor, you wouldn't get any money. They would actually charge you to be on their website.
I take it from all sides tonight. Jesus.
That's what you'd be doing on OnlyFans.
I was just kidding. I thought I teed it up pretty well for you there, Matt. Nice job.
We have a rapport.
All right, so I guess we'll get started. We are fantasy football's finest, and today I am joined by Matt, Connor, and Ted. How you guys doing?
Great.
Excellent.
Nice. All right, yeah, we're all quarantined up here, but we're ready to go. Give this thing a shot and see what happens. So today the idea behind today's episode is that we're going to be going over a live mock draft and kind of giving analysis, who's available, who you should be targeting at each pick. And, we'll kind of go from there. So we'll see what happens. First things, let's talk about some news. Matt, we'll start with you. Jordan Love just got signed to a fully guaranteed, nearly $20 million contract with $6.5 million as a signing bonus. What's your early take on that?
I mean, $20 million over how many years for rookie deals seems commensurate with other rookie deals for first round picks. And we were just talking before we came on air that I didn't realize that most rookie contracts in the first round were fully guaranteed. So at first I was kind of thinking, well, can you look into this and say, does this mean he's going to start any earlier than what the Packers are saying? And I think you can't read between the lines on this. There's nothing to gather. I think they just gave him a guaranteed contract because they like his potential. He's a good player. They wanted to reward him, and they might also anticipate him having a rough time if there is a transition. Maybe that's one. That's one aspect of this.
Yeah.
Does anybody know what Aaron Rodgers' contract is like per year? How much he's getting paid?
It's over $30 million a year.
Per year.
31,
okay.
33.
And Love is getting how much? Was 20 over how many?
4.
20 over 4.
Okay. So,
so
is Love also getting a stimulus check?
I don't think so.
How's he going to make it week to week? Anyway. All right.
Right.
Well, after taxes, I mean, really.
Whoa.
5 million. It's really only 2.5, 2.75.
Yeah.
Chump change.
Now, is $5 million for like a late round first pick? I mean, does it depend on the position that you play for first round picks, or is it really just based on where the place that you were drafted at?
Yeah, I thought it was all a set pay scale.
Yeah. After the Sam Bradford thing, when they were paying him like $35 million or whatever as a rookie, and they said, this is ridiculous. Sam Bradford does not deserve this much money.
Imagine that locker room.
Yeah, right.
Veteran linebackers like this mother.
Yeah, well, it's just setting players up to fail when you pay them that much money, because players, I mean, they care about that stuff, and with that much money comes a lot of expectation. So it was just like, what kind of a position was that for Sam Bradford to walk into?
Yeah, and for 21-year-old rookies too.
Yeah,
it's different than your established veteran quarterback.
Right. Now, Ted, you got $30 million guaranteed when you came out of college, right?
Yeah. The Nielsen company was very benevolent with their initial offer. $15 million came in the form of a signing bonus. So I lowered my cap hit, but I got the money up front and I was able to invest it. It was a depreciated market in 2010, so it really took off.
Are you looking to adopt?
Adopt a 20.
Adopt you?
Yeah, no, seriously, I'm available.
Connor wearing a soccer jersey to a football podcast.
I thought it was on brand, and when you success is so seldom, you celebrate it at every turn. Anyway, I don't want to digress too much. Go ahead.
Well, to be fair, we didn't clarify that it was American football, so
that's right.
Sports are back. That's all I care. I'm betting my ass off. Money I don't have. It's fine. We beat Chelsea today. Everything's good, and I covered, so we're fine.
Wow, soccer is actually going on right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That shows how that is perfectly on brand for Mike right there. It shows how much he's tuned into NFL Network and only NFL Network, and I can appreciate it.
That's pretty much it. All right. Another topic. We got Cam Newton signing with the Patriots, which is pretty big. I generally like to play devil's advocate. I mean, he's coming off two pretty big injuries, Liz Frank in the foot and shoulder injury. Then again, he is going to Bill Belichick and the Patriots. It's going to be interesting to see. Bill Belichick he's been known as a defensive-minded coach, and he's adapted his defense over time, starting off with a 3-4 defense with guys like Mike Vrabel and Willem McGinnis. And then you really kind of saw him transition to a 4-3 defense and now into more of a hybrid. Now, you really kind of haven't seen that on the offensive side because it's pretty much been the same system, for 20 plus years, it seems. And they're bringing in a mobile quarterback, even though I don't believe Cam at this point in his career should be a run first quarterback, which he wasn't always, but it was always a good option for him. I guess I'll leave it up to you guys. Ted, why don't we start with you? How do you think Cam Newton will fit into the offense, or do you think that they will build a new offense around him?
The whole thing is very yawn to me because, of course, the Patriots got Cam Newton. I have this terrifying suspicion that he's going to thrive, and I do think that they will work the offense to his liking. I think Josh McDaniels, he's the offensive coordinator, right? Yep. Yeah, I thought so. He's he works schemes. He won with Garoppolo. He won with Brissett. Or maybe he wasn't the coach at the time, but I don't know. The guy knows what he's doing. Parcells, the Parcells tree trickles down strong in this group, and whatever. The Patriots are going to be 14-2. It's fine.
Yeah, I am really excited about it. I guess I don't have to worry about them being a Packer fan. They're in a different conference. So it might be different if you're a fan of an AFC team. And this is just, the Patriots reloading at this point. But as a football fan, it's such a perfect fit because Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick have been able to cater offenses to what their personnel is. You saw them in that Rams Super Bowl. They were a run first team. And at points during that season, they were a spread them out offense kind of team. And then over the history of Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick's careers, they had Randy Moss scored a record amount of touchdowns. One year they ran two, or a couple years they ran two tight ends until one of the tight ends killed everybody. So they are able to adapt to what their personnel is, and they'll be able to figure out. Cam Newton is such an exceptional athlete that if he's healthy, and then I guess that's the big if he's healthy, they'll figure it out. I think their running attack could rival Baltimore's last year, this year for the Patriots, because you have Sony Michel and James White, and now Cam Newton. You watch all the highlights that are coming up, everybody talking about Cam Newton. He's so big. And the reason why it takes so much contact is because it takes 5 guys to bring him down. And he's always leaning forward. He's always initiating contact. But so I don't know. I think I've always been a Cam Newton believer in that he was injured the last 2 years, and then he had basically the year off last year, so maybe he's recovered. And you would have to think that a smart coach like Josh McDaniels is going to be able to figure out a way to protect him. So maybe fewer runs, or just I don't know. They'll scheme a way to do it. The last thing I'll say is that Tom Brady is like the king of 1-yard touchdown runs and quarterback sneaks, and Cam Newton is built for that. So maybe from a fantasy perspective, you could look at that too.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a better coach as far as working with personnel or like catering an offense or a defense or a scheme to his personnel than Belichick. I'm a little bit more like wait and see on this, just because I'd like to see Newton be healthy for a year and focused and motivated and not like more interested in what his wardrobe is looking like as opposed to like the product on the field. That being said, a lot of great football minds up in Foxborough. So it seems like they're going to be good again. And what's more fun than a great Patriots team? Yeah, okay.
Like it could go one of two. Like it could go any number of ways, right? Like Cam can get hurt again, or Cam can have like an average like bounce back season. And the Patriots, towards the second half of last season, we saw that they weren't as talented as everybody thought they were. So maybe it's just a middling season for them. But you could just as easily see Cam Newton winning comeback player of the year and maybe even being NFL MVP. You could also see the Patriots cutting him. They only signed him for $7.5 million. That wouldn't totally shock me to say like, hey, we thought this was worth the value to give him a shot, but we want to go with Stidham instead. There's just such a host of options that can happen at this point. So yeah, it is probably a little bit too early to project how well he's going to do.
And that's the other thing. I mean, Bill Belichick has never been one outside of maybe Tom Brady. No one is guaranteed a starting job on that roster, right? So do we even, I mean, obviously it's Cam Newton. He's a former MVP. He's a Heisman winner. He won a national championship. I mean, the guy he really is Superman when you think about it. But is there a chance that Cam Newton doesn't win the starting position in camp? I mean,
0%, I think.
Unless he like throws out his knee.
Yeah. Unless injury gets in the way. He's just such a superior athlete. And it's just it's injuries that have caused the issues for him over the last couple of years. And like, let's not forget that like the guys that he's been throwing to in Carolina have not been, like, you talk about Aaron Rodgers not having options. Devin Funchess was his number one receiver for
Kelvin Benjamin
years.
And he had Steve Smith Sr. for
a long
good
time
chunk.
ago.
Greg Olsen when he was healthy.
A long time ago. Greg Olsen also had injury concerns. And Kelvin Benjamin, I mean, where is he now? Nowhere.
He's a tub. He's like Jamarcus Russell.
Did he have Muhsin Muhammad?
Maybe. I think that predated him.
Yeah.
Then I was going to say there's no excuses. But
Muhsin Muhammad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing where Cam is now in the Patriots, they have a phenomenal offense. Phenomenal defense. And when Cam and the Panthers went to the Super Bowl, they did have that powerhouse of a defense there in Carolina. And they created a lot of opportunities for him to score on the offensive side of the ball, which is what the New England defense brings to the table. You know, they led the league in takeaways last year, or they were second. I can't exactly remember. But at least in the first 8 weeks of the season, those guys were lighting up the scoreboards. And for me personally, as a fantasy defense, that was very awesome having your defense score 30 plus points a game. But so Cam Newton will potentially have plenty of opportunities. But the real question becomes, who is he really going to throw to? Julian Edelman is still there. Mohamed Sanu is a proven wide receiver, as we've seen. The tight end position is vacant. There's really no one there. So they're going to have to run the ball. Their offensive line is not built to pass protect. We saw Tom Brady last year against the blitz had the lowest completion percentage out of any quarterback, which just showed you he was getting hit a lot, which is unfortunate. But he also didn't have the weapons or the receivers with the know-how with the multiple option routes that they run there in New England to, get things rolling. So Cam could struggle and he could get hit early on, and coming into this late, like he probably doesn't even have the playbook yet. And training camp's going to start in 3 weeks. A little behind the 8 ball.
They drafted 2 tight ends this year. I mean, tight ends as rookies don't really perform, but you never know. And they drafted N'Keal Harry last year, who was kind of underwhelming, but also a rookie. So, he could make a jump next year. But you're right that there are some concerns over just the personnel on that offense. I guess the
Jacoby
question.
Myers shined in the preseason last year, and then he didn't even see the field at all.
Yeah. Now that obviously there's a lot of unknowns about Cam Newton, whether he's going to end up being the starter there, whether he's going to be able to make the team or whatever. But just on paper right now, if Cam Newton is the starter, are the Bills still the favorites to win that division?
They're the hit pick.
You can't count. We've talked about this in previous weeks. You can't count the Patriots out until they're actually out. So it doesn't matter who they have at court, even with Stidham. Like the way that Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels has that team going. I like the Bills.
Don't bet against
They're young.
them. Yeah.
You can't.
I like the Jets this year.
Ooh.
No, you don't. Shh. Say that.
Hey.
You don't say that.
Well, we know Darnold's not getting mono again, so he's got that going for him.
I guess you could say it's the most intriguing this division has been in a long time because you can make a case for every team. Some are more speculative than others, but there's just a lot of unknowns at this point.
Yeah. I mean, you can easily talk about the Dolphins, and they revamped that entire defense where they have 2 studs at corner, right? And their defensive line is reworked. You bring in Kyle Van Noy at linebacker. So, and Brian Flores had that defense rolling at the end of last year.
Yep.
So who knows what can happen there? And you have what's his face, Greg Williams in New York, who he doesn't need any name players. His defense is always prepared, and they're traditionally do pretty well.
Yeah.
And Bills, their defense.
He just needs some cash and some access to the players in the locker room. And Greg
Say
Williams.
feared defenses.
Yeah.
That's good. All right, so let's get rolling. The way that this is going to work, it's going to be rotating between the 3 of us. Connor will be moderating, keeping us on time. We'll have 1 minute for each pick. That player can then give analysis on who's available and what his options are, what strategy may be if you're picking at 1, 5, 7, whatever number, and then we'll go from there. So, Matt, you have the first overall pick, so you're on the clock.
Hold on, wait. He's almost on the clock.
Oh, sorry.
And wait, hold on. Before we start, I was hoping you
Yes.
guys could help me with something because I don't remember. Are there or are there not laws when you're drinking the claws?
I guess it depends on the jurisdiction.
New York.
Then no, there's no law.
There are no laws. Okay.
Yeah. That's
Great. I'll trade you the 3rd pick for the 1st pick.
Okay.
Right.
Straight up, let's do it. Good trade.
By the way, what
Yeah.
flavor claw do you have there, Ted?
It's a raspberry, but not by choice. It was what was left.
Okay.
I would
Okay.
take a citrus all day.
And Diaz, what are you sipping on, Bill?
This is a Tanqueray 10 and club soda.
Gin and water.
Okay. And
Yeah,
and
spice it
Matt,
up.
are you just abstaining or?
No, I got kind of a hazy IPA from a local producer out here. It's great.
Very
Okay.
nice.
All that
Think
talk
you're not
about
gonna
multi
say their name?
IPAs.
Because they didn't pay us.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'm actually sponsored by a rival brewery.
Yeah,
No,
No freebies.
this is Left Hand, and you guys actually might have Left Hand.
we have left hand.
Certainly
Yeah,
the
in
milk
New Jersey.
stout. Yeah.
We have the
Yes.
stranger too, I've seen.
They're famous for their milk stout. But I'm
Connor.
like, I get it. Never mind.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just sorry. I'm just slumming it with Miller High Life, the champagne beer. So
That's
what do you mean
a notch
slumming
up
it?
from the PBR you had last week.
hey,
Hey.
it was a hard week last week. All
Yeah,
right.
too.
Anyway, Matt, you're on the clock. Starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so last week we considered the merits of Saquon Barkley versus Christian McCaffrey, and I can see myself maybe later in the year taking Barkley, but McCaffrey is the proven commodity. He's done it year after year. I'm not going to overthink this. And so that's why I'm going to go with Cam Newton, number 1 overall. No, I will take Christian McCaffrey.
Cam Newton for
That's right.
Auburn by way of Florida. Okay. All right. Christian McCaffrey, number 1. That is off the clock. And we're moving right along to, was it Diaz?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So with number 2, you have one of the best, especially in a PPR format. This is a 10-team PPR format that we're running here, mocking here tonight. So I'm going to take a guy that is arguably could be, the first overall pick, and Saquon Barkley. You really have no choice. You shouldn't reach for another running back like an Ezekiel Elliott, and you definitely should not take a wide receiver like Michael Thomas here. Although his production last year was absolutely amazing, 185 targets. The amount of wide receiver talent this year is off the charts, and there are not that many great running backs. So if you're picking early, you have to go running back.
Goes with a running back with plenty of time to spare. We're moving right along with Teddy. You're on the clock.
I am inclined to agree with the pattern here. There's a lot of top shelf running backs. I'm looking between Ezekiel Elliott and the guy that I will pick. And I will knock Ezekiel Elliott for the Mike McCarthy offense thing. There's a lot of mouths to feed. Dallas seems to be boomer bust. And I'm going to go with another proven commodity in Alvin Kamara. I think that he's due for a bit of a bounce back year. And in a PPR league, I want those Drew Brees points.
Alvin Kamara. Okay. Moving
I agree.
right along.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Please.
Oh, you're the moderator. I agree with that pick there. I think
Okay,
Kamara.
No.
I think Kamara is a fantastic pick because in a PPR league, that's points per reception. He is going to get a lot of looks. He had 80 plus receptions last year, and that doesn't even compare to what Ezekiel Elliott will get this year. I mean, Zeke will probably finish with 30, maybe 40 receptions tops. Of course, he has the running capabilities, but with Mike McCarthy coming into town, you just don't know what he's going to be like. So again, kind of building off, this is kind of in the territory where you may want to think wide receiver, but don't be an idiot. You have to pick a running back, and you have to go Zeke here because he's the best running back available. Dalvin Cook may be holding out, but you never know. So take the best available at this point.
So
right along.
Yeah, Elliott's probably the right choice there. I mean, you can knock him for being a McCarthy scheme, but he's just one of those guys who's produced, and Mike McCarthy has never had a running back like Zeke Elliott. He's never really had a running offensive line like the Cowboys do. So I think he'll be fine. He may not be number 1 or number 2, but he's going to be top 5 unless he gets injured at some point. It's still, if McCarthy's smart and he learned anything, it'll still run through him. So now at 5, I'm kind of in no man's land. Because you could go Michael Thomas here, but I just hate taking a wide receiver in the top 5. It just kind of irks me. Dalvin Cook, I have some concerns about his injuries and about some of the personnel on the Vikings. Devontae Adams, again, don't want to take a wide receiver at this point, but I'm going to take another Packer, Aaron Jones, 19 touchdowns last year, tied the lead for touchdowns last year with Christian McCaffrey. I don't know why he's being undervalued by people. I guess they want to see it for more than 1 year. But the Matt LaFleur system runs through the running back, and Aaron Jones proved exceptionally capable last year.
Another Packer. Surprise, surprise. Moving along. Teddy?
Oh, so it's Ted too. I thought this was going to be auto pick.
My bad. Auto pick.
But it isn't.
No,
No, you were right. You're absolutely right. So I have pick. Yeah, right. We switched that. So I'm sitting here at pick 6. I just want to defend also. I don't not like Zeke. I just wanted Kamara at that between the two of them. I would have taken Zeke
It's
in
the better
next
choice
spot anyway. So I'm not a disbeliever. I just like Kamara. In this spot, right. The threat is, do you leave Michael Thomas on the board and go for a running back because that's conventional wisdom? And the answer for me is going to be no. I'm going to take Michael Thomas here. I think that he is head and shoulders the strongest receiver on the board. I'm happy to start him every week.
Fair enough. All right. So we're up to our auto pick. We're just pretty much going to do a consensus pick, best available, which looking at the overall board would probably be Dalvin Cook, unless anyone wants to make an argument against.
No, I think that's fair. I mean, the other guy I might consider is Derrick Henry, but to me, they're kind of pretty similar. So
yeah,
right.
With Cook ranked higher, let's go with him.
Was that team was like Tennessee kind of a surprise last year, like at just like the level that they were playing at, like going into the playoffs?
Essentially,
who did they unseat in the playoffs? It was like
the Patriots
and Baltimore.
Right. That was the one I was. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. And they started 2-4, and then they switched quarterback. So, but then they just caught fire. So, the question is, can they keep that up? Who knows?
Derrick Henry was freaking unbelievable. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. On the clock.
Me. Okay. Derrick Henry is an option. Again, I mentioned it before. He's such a beast, and he's so hard to tackle. But there's just something about him. I think maybe it's his lack of pass catching that holds me back from taking him in a PPR. DeAndre Hopkins on a new team with Larry Fitzgerald and an unproven quarterback. Who knows? Kenyon Drake, not enough there for me to last season for me to feel confident this year. Nick Chubb has Kareem Hunt there. So I'm going to take another Packer. I'm going to go with Davante Adams. I think he might be in line for a career year this year. He's entering the prime of his career. He's the bona fide number one. Aaron Rodgers is going to be super motivated this year. Even though he was getting 15 targets last year, Aaron Rodgers said he wants to get him the ball more. I think this could be the season that elevates Davante Adams into, the conversation of maybe the best wide receiver in the league if he's not there already.
And that winds up your time for talking about the Packers starting 11. Okay, and
well, there's nobody else to take, so
and that's an aggregate.
Yay, Packers! Okay, so Mike.
Actually, this is Ted's
next, but Teddy. Okay, next.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm back in here at 9, and I believe Davante Adams will continue to ascend, and I do like the pick, but I have to be happy at 9 with Derrick Henry. Pass catching, a little bit of a concern, but there's no way I'm not putting him in the off chance that he does repeat and lead the league in rushing again. I want to be a part of it. And he proved he's got some breakaway potential. So there is like sort of that high upside that you get out of players that usually accomplish it by catching 9 passes in addition to 70 yards. He's like, could rip off a 60-yard touchdown twice a game, hit 200 yards. He's done that kind of thing in the past. And at number 9 overall, I'm very happy with Derrick Henry.
Yeah, should be.
All right. So at 10, rounding out, you get 2 picks pretty much in a row. So you're in a unique position. You can either double up on either category, running back or wide receiver, or you can split the difference, which is a pretty good strategy as well. Looking at the players available, most of the top running backs are now off the board. You have a couple guys that are really projected into the second round, so you may not want to reach for them at this point because there's a lot of value here with some of the top receivers. You have DeAndre Hopkins, who, like we said, we don't know what that's going to be like in a spread offense in Arizona. Tyreek Hill is there. You still have Julio Jones. So for me, at least at 10, I'm going to take my guy, Julio Jones, because I just think he is, without a doubt, one of the best receivers in the NFL, and he has always been very consistent as far as fantasy production, being in the top 10 every year over the last 7 seasons. Following that up, again, there's still not a lot of running backs that I like at this point, so I'm going to pair him with another guy who is equally game-breaking in Tyreek Hill. I think having that combination of both size and speed and being the number one targets, the clear number one targets on both those high potent offenses, it's going to be fun, and it's going to make Sundays fun to watch.
Well, Julio Jones is certainly a shocker. But Tyreek Hill, okay, that's more on brand for you. Now, 2 of the things, like every time I come in, like every week when I join you guys, the first thing that I always look for is to just tap Mike's straight blind optimism, endless blind optimism right into my veins for the Falcons. And then also to talk about my burgeoning DJ career. All right. Okay, so moving right along. Who's up next? We're on the clock in 3 seconds.
Ted? Yeah,
it's going to be
Ted
me.
Is up at 12.
All
Yeah, so this is the pick where I had to sit through Mr. Snake End draft, steal like both the players that I wanted to grab with Derrick Henry to pair him with a top flight wide receiver. Would have been awesome. Those are the two I was eyeballing. They're not there. So now I'm thinking that I've got a long ways to go until my third pick. So I'm thinking I'm going to double dip in a running back, and I am stalling because I'm undecided on which move we're going to make here, because there's everyone's got a little bit of a question mark. Top available are Joe Mixon, Kenyon Drake, Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb,
on the board.
Austin Eckler. And I'm going to take the flyer on Austin Eckler. Again, PPR league, get this catch points from somebody. If it's not going to be Derrick Henry, it's going to be Eckler.
Austin Eckler, the Los Angeles Clippers. Moving along. Clock starts in 3 seconds here. All right.
Well, I was going to take Austin Eckler, so
We all knew you were going to take him.
I'm also going to take Austin Eckler here.
Surprise
No
move
loss,
at
no
Matt's
loss.
camp. Where
And I like Tyreek Hill. I was kind of hoping he would fall too, but I think that's an excellent pairing, Julio and Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
And so now you got a bunch of guys who I feel like maybe there was a drop off there. Josh Jacobs, I'm optimistic about him, but only 1 year. The team is still ascending, so you don't really know. Miles Sanders, who knows at this point, certainly showed a lot of promise. Really athletic player, but I'm just not sold on him for the second round. I don't want to dip into tight ends. I don't really want to dip into quarterbacks. Some of the receivers that are available, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Kenny Galladay. It feels like
less than 10 seconds, Matt.
Feels like a little bit too early for those guys. I'm going to take a guy that, not the sexiest pick, but he will produce, Joe Mixon.
Whew. And just got the pick in there. Joe
Auto
Mixon.
pick was about to step in and steal it.
He's going to pick Joe Mixon.
All right. So
Right.
auto pick. I mean, I think it's kind of clear who we've left on the board. It's not so much that we don't like him or that we don't think he's going to produce, but we are weary about the system that he's going to. New system. There's plenty of offensive weapons there. So we just don't know. But DeAndre Hopkins, I think, is a good pick for auto. Unless you guys disagree.
No, I mean, people are down on them because it's a new team. They don't know about Kyler Murray quite yet, but he still has the best hands in the league by far. He's still a beast. He's still quick.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna produce. So the risk with Hopkins is so low.
Yeah.
This team already has the makings of a great auto draft.
I mean, to kind
does.
of touch on DeAndre Hopkins, I think that he elevates the play of every other receiver in that room. I think you're going to see Larry Fitzgerald. He led the team last year with nearly 900 yards receiving. So his play is going to go up. Christian Kirk, they're going to see opportunities because some defense, you're most likely going to have to double DeAndre Hopkins, which you're going to play Larry one-on-one. I get it. He's 36. He's a little slow, but he's winning every one-on-one coverage that there is. And I can guarantee you that. Christian Kirk is young. He's talented. Who knows? And you got Kenyon Drake out of the backfield. So it's going to be a tough play for defenses.
So wait, before we do the next pick, when does quarterback or like anomaly tight end start entering your mind as far as like round where, or is it just really predicated by, I feel really comfortable in like two of my position players or like one, two or three of them. And you're just like, I really want to, I see somebody that's still there or that's available to me. And I don't have a keeper quarterback. I really want to make an aggressive move. What goes through your mind and what rounds are we thinking?
Late second round for either of those guys when you might want to start thinking about it. If you're really high on Lamar Jackson or Travis Kelce or something, somebody's going to take them in one of the first two rounds. So it enters a lot of people's minds. But I think as we've talked about in other videos, it makes a little bit more sense to wait and to stock up on some of the higher price guys right now instead of spending a lot on a quarterback or a tight end. But certainly people will start taking them in the second round.
Sure.
Yeah.
Points leader for quarterback last year was
Lamar
Jackson.
Jackson.
Lamar
By a
Jackson. Far,
long
like
shot.
okay,
Far
and
away,
the
yeah.
point differential, like average point differential between say Lamar Jackson and top running back. Anybody have like a general idea? In our PPR league,
Our quarterbacks get like 150 to 200 more than running backs usually.
okay.
Yeah, I could be wrong on this, but just from memory, I think Lamar Jackson was somewhere over 400 and McCaffrey was like 330 or
Three
something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So about 100 points.
But then
It's just
again,
the-
you
But then
can't
again, all
necessarily.
quarterbacks get a lot of points.
Right. So it's
Right,
the fact that the quarterbacks are usually coming up with an abundance of points, and then there's the general lack of quality running backs that
Mhm.
are motivating people to
Jackson-
draft them first.
Last year and Mahomes the year before were equal anomalies where they were. I mean, I think Jackson outpaced the second quarterback by 80 points or something this year, which is like
Wow.
almost the same gap. So it mattered.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And do
But
you guys remember when we took Lamar Jackson, or what round he was taken in this
he
year?
was a free agent pickup, just like Patrick Mahomes was the year before.
That's right.
So
Okay.
it just goes to show you that you never know with these quarterbacks. I mean, we could be looking at 2020. The stud of fantasy may not even be drafted. We talked about this in a prior episode. You just don't know with these things, but you can't always base your draft off of last year's production alone. There's so much that goes into the next season that you have to take an account for. Like for someone to think that Lamar Jackson is going to have the same caliber season that he had in 2019 is absolutely off the rocker. It's not going to happen. He's going to do well, but he's not going to do that well. For him to repeat an MVP season is just unheard of. And if he does it, I'll totally eat crow on that because that'll just be absolutely amazing, but don't expect that to happen at all.
Okay. And so if you're not drafting Cam Newton in the first round, then you're an idiot.
Go
Got
home.
it. Okay. So where are we at now? Who's on the clock here?
That's
Teddy's
gonna be me. It's
Ted.
gonna be me. All right. So team 6 here is sitting on Michael Thomas as my first round pick. So I'm in desperate need of a running back. Good news is a lot of the top players available are running backs. And I'm looking at 2 guys that are young and showed a lot of promise, especially towards the end of last year, in Kenyon Drake and Josh Jacobs. And I have to flip a coin, and the coin decision is going to be for Kenyon Drake, because I feel just a little bit better about the Cardinals overall, the thing they're doing right now, than I do about the Las Vegas Raiders. And I think these 2 guys are really similar. So I'm going to roll with Kenyon Drake.
All right. The Las Vegas Raiders. That just sounds
It
super
doesn't
weird.
sound right.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
I don't like it. Okay, so I took Aaron Jones in the first round, maybe earlier than some people might have him going. I'm also going to take a guy here in the second round for this team that's going to go earlier than some people might expect. I don't know if he's going to get back to me in the third round. I think I got 12 picks or so. But so I could take Josh Jacobs, but I'm going to take a player that I think is similar, but also catches passes. Jay Gruden goes down to be the offensive coordinator there. Leonard Fournette. He catches so many more passes than people think. He is the only running back in that running back room. And so I feel pretty comfortable pairing him with Aaron Jones.
Leonard Fournette from the clouds.
Fair enough.
Okay.
And this just goes to show you that you have to take into account the gap between your picks. So if you really like a player, you have to, you can't take a chance on him, especially if there is that huge gap. I love Leonard Fournette. He had over 100 targets last year. I think that's going to be awesome for them. People don't give the Jacksonville Jaguars offense enough credit, and especially in a division where the defenses are fairly weak. And Gardner Minshew, 28 touchdowns to 6 interceptions last year. I think he's got that offense rolling. So this is no question for me at this point. I have 2 stud running backs left on the board. At the 4th overall pick, I took Ezekiel Elliott. I could go for a Tampa Bay wide receiver here, but I'm not too confident in either of them. I'm taking a guy that I really like, has no competition in the backfield, Josh Jacobs. He's going to get more involved in the passing game, which he wasn't that of last year. So I like him to kind of have a really good sophomore season in that offense where they added, Henry Ruggs to really take the top off the defense. So he's going to see a lot less 8-man fronts.
I like the pick. Obviously, I was talking about him as the counterpoint to Kenyon Drake, which leaves me at team 3. I picked Alvin Kamara in the first round, and I have a pick in not too far, so I have sort of a little bit of flexibility here where I could go double running back, or I could go get the top receiver and hope to grab the running backs that swing back around. And I think that I am trusting that running backs are falling off quicker here than receivers are. I think there's a little bit more depth here at this pick of 17 or wherever we're at. So I'm going to go and grab Miles Sanders, the Philadelphia Eagles, and pair him with Alvin Kamara and have a nice little PPR running back duo.
Sanders.
Yeah.
Off the board.
Was hoping to get Miles Sanders there and pair 2 Nittany Lions together in my backfield. I thought that would have been really awesome, especially in a division where the defenses are fairly weak. So that
right before
nice.
You could take him, Teddy took him. How does that make you feel?
a little hurt and jaded, to be honest, but we'll go. So
I'm high on Miles Sanders.
Yeah, a lot of people are this year, as they should be. So sitting here at 19. Pick Saquon Barkley in the first round. I have a couple of options. I could grab Nick Chubb, but there are questions about having Kenyon Drake there in the backfield, who's definitely going to steal a lot of third down opportunities. Nick Chubb will still get the first down and the goal line carries. I think he's proven that that's where he values. But I have Saquon. I want to pair him with another guy, which is why I wanted Miles Sanders. There's no one here that I feel too confident with. So I'm going to get potentially another game breaker at wide receiver in Chris Godwin. I think he proved last year that even with Jameis Winston at quarterback, Chris Godwin, you have a hard time matching up against him in man, and he will blow right by you if you're playing zone. Tom Brady is smart enough to find the open receiver, and I think he will fit in well with the new offense that they're running down there in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, so now I'm picking back-to-back here. Took McCaffrey in the first round. This kind of goes to show that you should know the players in your league that you're playing against, because Mike knows that I really like Chris Godwin, and that I was high on him. Was probably going to take him here.
Feels like it stung a little bit, Matt.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm actually down on him. It was a long con. But so now everything kind of opens up. You could start thinking about Travis Kelce. You could start thinking about Lamar Jackson, George Kittle, Pat Mahomes. I am going to pair a no doubt fantasy superstar, Christian McCaffrey, with a guy who has been that and might have some question marks this year due to his health, and take Todd Gurley because I think on a 1-year contract, the Falcons are gonna run him ragged, and he still has the ability. It's just his carries were limited last year. So I'm a little bit concerned.
Still scored 16 touchdowns. Just saying.
Right, because they only used him inside the 20s, and what I'm hoping is that the Falcons will do that, but also give him the ball, in the middle of the field too. So now I got Gurley and McCaffrey, and there's some intriguing wide receivers: Allen Robinson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Amari Cooper. But I think a guy that that has just kind of steadily improved over the last few years is Kenny Golladay, and I'm going to take him here. And it might, as a number one wide receiver, you probably couldn't say that last year, but I think he's earned it. He's exceptionally talented, and Matthew Stafford is back this year. So I feel pretty comfortable at him as number one, especially because when it swings back around, I think there'll still be some good wide receivers to fill out that receiving core.
Yeah. Love the pick of Kenny Golladay. That receiving core of Marvin Jones Jr. and Kenny Golladay last year teamed up for 20 touchdowns, and that was without Matt Stafford for more than half the year. That's right. So those guys are very talented, and when you add a guy like DeAndre Swift in the backfield and you pair him with Kerryon Johnson, I think that offense, and they revamped the offensive line, by the way, in the offseason, so I think that offense is going to produce very well. So sitting here at 22, I took Saquon Barkley, Chris Godwin, and I'm left with a choice because I'm not picking again for 11 picks, whatever it may be. So you have a choice. You can either take a top tight end, you can reach for a running back. And we've talked about this in the past. If you have 3 guys on your fantasy team that can score 30 points, you pretty much won the week. So I think having a guy like Travis Kelce on your team, who is the first and second option on pretty much all pass plays, I don't think you can pass that up at this point.
Okay. Is Tony Gonzalez still on the board?
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. Surprised we didn't see an early pickup from Diaz with Gurley. Anyway, moving right along.
All right, so the pick has come back around to me. I was the 3rd overall. It's the 3rd pick in the 3rd round. I paired Miles Sanders with Alvin Kamara, and I really like my running back room, and I was hoping that there would still be some depth available at wide receiver, and I do believe that this was the right move. I think that there's more here to work with than there is with running backs at this point. So I'm feeling good about it, and I was holding my breath, and I'm feeling good about the guy that's still available because I wanted to chase him because one thing that's true is Kenny Golladay proved it. Juju Smith-Schuster proved it, is that like having a high level quarterback matters. And I think that this guy, Odell Beckham Jr., is paired with a quarterback who's shown potential and had a down year, a true sophomore slump. They don't have a phrase for it for nothing. I think that we could see a bounce back season from Mayfield, and Odell can put up some big numbers.
Okay, that was actually going to be my question for you guys: is what are realistic expectations for? I guess I'll take the word realistic out of it because people thought realistic expectations for the Browns last year were, we're going to the Super Bowl. So, what are your expectations, guys, for the Browns this year? I really don't know what to make of them.
It really all falls on Stefanski. And we talked about this last week about the Browns offense, is that you really kind of have to look in the past to see where the future is going. So you kind of have to pair those wide receivers just like they had in Minnesota, where Odell Beckham Jr. will be your Stephon Diggs, your big chunk play, big post down the field, whatever it may be, splash play. And your Jarvis Landry is going to be your Adam Thielen, your move the chains, curls, first down, whatever it is. That's the offense that you're looking at. But then again, there's so many weapons on offense. You have 2-star running backs, all pros. You have 2 all pros at tight end. David Njoku is a very good talent there who just seems to be getting pushed out of town. And you have 2 very good wide receivers who have both made the Pro Bowl and are all world. So you just don't know, but you like to hope for the best.
I think it could be fun from a fantasy perspective, but in terms of real football, I just have too many concerns about Baker Mayfield. All they added this year to what they had last year was Austin Hooper. And so he still had 2 of the best wide receivers in the league in Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham to throw to last year. Yeah, they got points, but they didn't win that many. They didn't win enough games. They had Kareem Hunt for the second half of the season. Nick Chubb, they had him for the whole season. So there was enough talent around him, and Mayfield just wasn't good enough. And I'm not necessarily sold on Stefanski coming over and being the savior. You also have to look at the history of the Browns. The Browns consistently underperform. I think there's probably something to that. And then also the Steelers got better and the Bengals got better. So they're in a tougher division.
Yeah, I'm going to pile on that. I am optimistic and I'm hopeful for the Browns. I think that a changing coaching regime can have a big effect regardless of who it is or how it works. I think that Mayfield's young enough to start to work with whoever shows up. And I don't think Freddie Kitchens was the answer. So will Stefanski, time will tell. We don't know. But my bet on it I think they're the 3rd best chance to win the division. So not
I was going to say, when you started off by saying you were hopeful, and I was like, is that the most disingenuous thing you've ever said as a Steelers fan about the Browns? Or is that or is it kind of like a condescending thing? Like, I'm very hopeful that they get 2 or 3 wins, but
the Browns are my least favorite team in the AFC North. So that's
okay. Fair enough. Okay. All right. Let's get back to some picking here.
All right. So at 24, Odell Beckham is off the board. And I'm sitting on Zeke, who I took in the 1st round, and Josh Jacobs in the 2nd. This is a strategy that some people like to call 0 wide receiver, where the first 3-4 rounds, you just pretty much avoid wide receivers completely and stock up on running backs, which is something that I'm going to focus on here. Now, all three of these guys are not necessarily PPR focused guys, but they're runners. They're going to get the rock, and they've been known to find the end zone. Nick Chubb is still available in the 3rd round, which I just think is remarkable. And I don't think I can let him get past this point. There's really no one else to consider right there for me.
Yeah, Chubb fell this far because people have concerns about Kareem Hunt. I mean, his numbers dropped off precipitously once Kareem Hunt
SAT word.
Yeah, fulfilled his suspension. So I don't know. Third round makes a lot of sense to me for Nick Chubb because he showed so much upside just through his raw talent that he warrants a 3rd round pick. So here at the 5th, I took Jones and Fournette, which I feel pretty good about. 2 PPR running backs, 2 running backs that'll thrive in a PPR system. So you might think about Lamar Jackson here. George Kittle, I don't necessarily know. I think the guy, I mean, this comes down to strategy. Do I want to do 3 running backs here or start to build the wide receiver core? I am really high. I'm higher on Juju Smith-Schuster than I am the running back that I was considering because Juju with Ben Roethlisberger rights all the wrongs that we saw from Juju last year. I don't think it was a Antonio Brown thing and that he wasn't getting enough attention. I think Juju's a great player, and he just needs Ben to get him the ball in the right location because he was playing with a bunch of backups last year. So I think Juju as the number 1 receiver on this team to go with 2 PPR running backs is pretty good.
Okay. Juju Smith-Schuster out of USC. Ugh. Okay. On the clock.
Big Ted.
It is me. All right. Team 6 over here has got Michael Thomas and Kenyon Drake, sort of been spreading the wealth around. And based on what I'm seeing, I think Juju is sort of the last top shelf. Mike Evans is still on the board. But this is that moment where you start to think, should I go with someone different, with like a different position? And I think that I will capitalize on the fact that George Kittle is still on the board. I like having the plug and play tight end. Now I sort of have one solid guy at each position, the Michael Thomas, Kenyon Drake, and George Kittle now. So I don't know what I'm going to be looking for in this season. I'm not taking a pure wide receiver or pure running back strategy. I'm just sort of taking like you have to start a tight end. So let's get the best available. Just like I did with the running back in the 1st round and the wide receiver in the 2nd, or well, actually flip that, but George Kittle it is.
Conversely, Matt, you were seemingly a little down on Kittle, and what was your rationale behind that?
I'm not down on Kittle. I think Kelsey's like a clear number 1, and Kittle I think is a clear number 2. It's just if I'm thinking between Juju Smith-Schuster and Kittle, I just like the upside of Juju more. I think it's just more of a player-to-player comparison between the two at this point.
Mm-hmm. Sure. All right.
I mean, to touch on Matt's point, George Kittle is in an offense in San Francisco where they're a run-first team. George Kittle is the starter. Not only is he a phenomenal talent at tight end, but he is a phenomenal run blocker, and that's why he fits the system so well. And that offense runs through play action, and that's why you saw George Kittle have a lot of big plays last year. Juju he is the number 1 target, whereas opposed to Kyle Shanahan, you never know. The 5th wide receiver could go off for 150 yards just based on scheme and what the defense is presenting and what he saw in film that week. So it's a little more of a guarantee, I would say, with Juju over Kittle. So we have a bit of a conundrum here. Auto pick is up. Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Hopkins in the 1st and 2nd rounds. Now what we're sitting on is you have the 2 top quarterbacks available. Mike Evans is on the board as a top wide receiver. what do we think we go here? Is this a good place for Lamar or Mahomes to go off the board?
Wait, hold
Yeah,
on a second. Now we look at Mike Evans, and I mean Mike Evans' like potential was like through the roof when he had a great season with Jameis, but then obviously it fell off a little bit. But I mean, now you pair him with Brady. What are we thinking as far as projections for him? Like, could he be technically like a steal at this like juncture in the draft? Or?
He definitely could. It's just unknown at this point, like what the target share is going to be between him and Chris Godwin and Gronk and the two other Cameron Brate and OJ Howard. It's just unknown about Mike Evans, and I think some people put Godwin a little bit higher because he had a better year last year. He's younger. He maybe is a little bit more explosive, but they're both good players, and they could both end up being top 10 wide receivers.
A deep dive on the receivers between Godwin and Evans, measurables wise. Evans is the much taller guy, no?
Yep, 6'5", 220. Godwin's 6'1", 210, 205, right around that. But Godwin brings a lot of speed.
Right.
Evans brings the red zone threat. Godwin is more of a big chunk play, move the chains type of player.
And as far as they've already got a guy now with Gronk. So as far as like big target in the red zone.
And that's the other thing. Brady loves Gronk. I mean, he literally came out of retirement, got traded to Tampa Bay just to play with Tom. And who's going to get the ball in this offense? Because you have so many players there. And now the talk is it's back. Antonio Brown may be coming to Tampa Bay, actually.
Oh, that's a rumor.
So
they squashed it. No way.
Who is going to get the ball?
He can't.
Yeah. It's
not
just ridiculous. And like Matt said, there's no history on this. And as I stated earlier, to know the future, you have to look into the past. And there is no past on this team. Tom Brady, after 20 years, is in a completely new offense with Bruce Arians, who loves to chuck the ball down the field. And that's not really Tom's game. He's more of a dink and dunk, check down, hand it off to your running backs out in the flats. So we just don't know what this offense is going to be. And if you want to take a flyer on one of these guys, you're more than welcome to. But as a smart fantasy player, you should probably avoid most players on this team, except for Tom Brady, because he's probably the one that will actually produce.
Right.
So as far as auto pick goes, I think that I would be comfortable taking Lamar Jackson here myself. I think that it's another classic auto pick. Like why'd we sit on him? He is the top ranked on the list that we happen to be using, which is what will be the scenario in most auto draft scenarios. And I think with the questions on Mike Evans and then the drop off to Clyde Edwards-Helaire and DJ Moore is just crazy. Like you take Jackson, you could make an argument for Mahomes, but Jackson is the higher ranked quarterback. So
it's the clear pick. Yeah.
Yeah, I would if this was my team, and I wish it was at this point. I would jump at Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I agree, and I'd be unbelievably happy with it. So I say we stick to the drill.
Now, I will point this out. One anecdote that I would like to make is I've been doing a lot of mocks over the last couple of weeks. We've talked about that. I actually just set one mock up to do a complete auto draft, and it was one of the worst teams that I could have possibly imagined. I had 3 running backs and I had 8 wide receivers on my team. No backup tight end, no backup quarterback, and it was just awful. So the algorithm that goes into picking some of these players, like if it's the computer and not us just deciding, it's pretty busted if you ask me. Yeah. All right, so Matt,
I think the algorithm is like the next player. Like I don't think there's much
not
science behind it. It's just like, well, yeah, unless you're missing a position, I guess. But
yeah. So sometimes auto draft will reach.
I'm tempted here now to reach for a player, but I'll probably stick closer to home. This team with Devontae
home.
Maybe Devontae Adams and Joe Mixon, who are two solid players. Always produce. I like the reason why I would leap at Mahomes here is because I feel like this team could use like a really high ceiling guy, and Mahomes is that player. But I'm gonna refrain from taking quarterback and take the the ranking pick and go with Mike Evans, because he's still Mike Evans, and now he has Tom Brady throwing to him. So he's not going to have a bad year. And pairing him with Devontae Adams, I mean, that, first and third round, I mean, that seems pretty good.
Red zone right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Still some really good quarterback options on the board here.
All right.
Okay.
Team 9 on the board, on the clock. I have Derrick Henry in round 1 and Austin Eckler in round 2. So I've got a sort of a thunder lightning thing in the backfield.
David and
on.
Goliath.
Yeah. I would like to touch on the Mike Evans pick. And this is a campaign I've been on, a hill I'm willing to live and die on, that I think it's not being looked at enough that, like, yes, everyone on the Buccaneers had a great season last year, but like Jameis Winston put up monster numbers. Yes, he had 30 interceptions, and that's why they didn't win a lot of games. But like, I just pulling up the stats, like he had 5,100 yards and 33 touchdowns compared to Tom Brady, who had 4,057 yards and 24 touchdowns. And I think that that's a realistic expectation for him. And I think everyone's numbers are going to go down. So I'm happy I don't have to worry about picking Mike Evans, because I'm not going to do it. So to compare with my tight little running backfield here, I'm actually going to go and grab Amari Cooper. I think that he's one of the top wide receivers still available on the board and should put up great numbers with Dak in Dallas.
Well, let me throw down a fight right now, just real quick, because the reason why Tom Brady's numbers were so far down is because that offense turned into a run-first offense with Sony Michel and James White. He also had nobody to throw to. He didn't have Gronk. He had Julian Edelman, who was, and that's about it. N'Keal Harry got injured halfway through the year. They had to trade for Mohamed Sanu. Maybe the reason why Jameis Winston, who got let go, I mean, if he had such a great year last year, they would have kept him.
He didn't for winning games. He did for scoring points on fantasy.
Right, but I mean, some of the credit of Jameis Winston's success has to go to like these two All-Pro wide receivers that he's throwing to.
Well, I think some of the credit of Tom Brady's lack of success has to go to the fact that he's a 42-year-old quarterback with an aging arm.
I think so, and I think probably they'll end up meeting in the middle somewhere. I think maybe they'll split the difference, and Tom Brady throws for 4,500 yards. Tampa Bay doesn't have a running back. Bruce Arians throws the ball, and their talent is loaded at wide receiver and at tight end. So they're going to throw the ball.
So he'll have 600 less yards and 5 less touchdowns than Jameis did last year, and that'll be an uptick for Brady, but still a downtick for the entire team.
Yeah, well, to be enough, it might be a downtick, but we're talking about late in the third round for Mike Evans.
Touche. I like Mike Evans. I've rostered him a lot, and he outperforms his like star power every year.
Yeah.
So you guys are done fighting, like getting uncomfortable.
The other thing about Amari Cooper is that he sucks.
That he sucks and I hate him. And next pick on the clock.
All right. So rounding out the third round, pick number 30, I am picking back-to-back here. I'm sitting on 2 awesome wide receivers in Julio Jones and Tyreek Hill. And at this point in the draft, I got 2 picks in a row. And I'm not going to be picking again after 30 and 31 until pick 50. So I want to make sure I get these guys right. I have 2 great wide receivers, as I just said. Tyreek Hill is an important piece to this puzzle. One thing that I look for personally as a fantasy owner is combos. You have a quarterback and you have his top wide receiver or top tight end, especially if they have a really good rapport with each other. I could sit on Matt Ryan and wait and hope to get him in the later rounds, pair with Julio. But Patrick Mahomes, I think this is a perfect value for him right here. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Pat Mahomes. Because when he throws a touchdown to Tyreek Hill, there's 10 points for you. And he's going to do that a lot, as he's done in the past. And now I really have to start looking at running back. And what I have here at running back is not very promising. But there are some guys. I'm looking at Melvin Gordon and Le'Veon Bell in particular. Melvin Gordon is coming to a very promising team in Denver where they're going to have to score points, and Drew Lock is going to have to throw the ball. So I'm not too sure how much Melvin Gordon is going to be a help when it comes to the division battles. But I know that Le'Veon Bell, the talent that he brings to the table, is just awesome. And there's no reason why he shouldn't be valued higher, which a lot of people are sleeping on him this year. But hey, this is the chance for the Jets to really prove that they can do something in this division. Tom Brady's not there. Yes, the Patriots signed Cam Newton, but they have a chance this year. That division is up for grabs, honestly.
Oh, well, okay. Optimism again, and I hope you're right, buddy. But years of just getting beaten down. All right. Anyway, Jets, Le'Veon Bell off the board.
Jetsbell.
All right. Well, I'm a little bit butthurt because I was hoping to come out of that with Le'Veon Bell. I was hoping you would take the Melvin Gordon angle. I just think that Bell's got a little bit more raw talent. I just sort of trust the uncertainty a little bit more than I do with Gordon. Even
more
to a
potential
point where,
in the passing game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because he's got great set of hands. He's proven that early on in his career. So it really throws off my game because I don't really want Gordon in this spot. I already have two decent running backs. So I'm looking for someone who's got some upside. Makes me lean a little bit towards like a flyer on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he's a little bit high here, but like they drafted him in the first round for a reason. So do you go with it? But I'm not. And instead, I'm going to go on a resurgence play and pick up David Johnson and hope that he is a motivated new guy on the Houston Texans.
Yep.
Giving me my third running back. So now if Henry sort of falls off a cliff or isn't producing, I've got a couple guys that will catch some passes.
Yeah, Mahomes and Bell and David Johnson, I think, are all really good picks right there. Mostly because I was thinking about taking all three of them. So now I got Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, and then Joe Mixon. Now in our league, we start 4 wide receivers. And just looking at the board,
Potentially.
Yeah, you could, but yeah, 2 wide receivers and 2 flex positions. And just looking at the board, it seems like there's more value in wide receiver right now than there is in running back. You know, Chris Carson is an option. I think he's kind of underrated. Edwards-Helaire is just kind of a wild card at this point, so you don't really know.
His ADP, I just want to throw this out there, is way too high for the type of player and the type of offense that he's going into.
Yeah. So there's 2 guys that I'm considering now. Both have produced over the last 2 years. Both get a ton of catches. I'm going to go for the guy that's a little bit younger. I think might have more of an upside this year, and go with Cooper Kupp in Los Angeles, because his numbers just prove it over the last few years. He's a dynamic player. The Rams are going to be better this year. And there's few options outside of Robert Woods. Maybe Tyler Higbee came on towards the end of last year, but now with Gurley gone, I think he's going to get a ton of passes if he can stay healthy. I like Cooper Kupp now to put into a wide receiver room that has Mike Evans and Devontae Adams, which I feel pretty good about.
Yeah. What makes you sold on the Rams resurgence?
Just because I think they underperformed last year, and they were still 7-9, 8-8,
9-7,
9-7. So they were right on the cusp of the playoffs. Could have made a run. I think that there was a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover. I think they were trying to figure out what they were going to do with Todd Gurley. They had some free agency issues that kind of came to a head, or some salary cap issues that came to a head last year. And I think maybe the down year kind of clarified a lot of things for Sean McVay, who I still think is a really smart coach, and maybe clarified things for Jared Goff too, who played well 2 years ago when they went to the Super Bowl.
Also played really well last year. I mean, the guy was 3rd in the league in passing yards. You know, so people are so down on Goff, but over the last 3 years, he's been top 5 in passing yardage.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp.
All right.
Boom. All right, so we got auto pick.
Would say Edwards-Helaire, DJ Moore. We had this same situation last week. Edwards-Helaire, DJ Moore, Adam Thielen, Allen Robinson. I don't know what you guys are thinking. So this is a team that has Jackson, Cook, and Hopkins, so pretty balanced. you could go anywhere with this. Of those 4 guys that are at the top of the board, I would lean towards one of the receivers, Thielen or Robinson. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm not sold on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. As I stated a couple seconds ago, I think his average draft position is way too high for who he is as a player. He's a rookie. We just don't know. He hasn't proven anything yet. DJ Moore is now in a spread offense with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. Christian McCaffrey is like 80% of the target share when it comes to passing. Plus, they also bring in Robbie Anderson. They have Curtis Samuel as well there. So we don't know who's going to emerge as the true number 1 receiver. And he's really only had 1 year of production. I'm not in favor of him. I think the best player on the board for auto pick would be Adam Thielen.
Yeah, I think Thielen and Robinson are both really good players. I think Robinson's actually the better talent. But Thielen is just a catch machine. And with Stephon Diggs gone, his issue was always targets. So now Thielen is going to get more targets. And he catches everything. And Kirk Cousins is good enough to put it into those windows when he's running 5 to 10 yard routes. So I think he's going to get a ton of volume. He has excellent hands. So I think Adam Thielen's a great pick there.
As I sit here silently, I am hoping Adam Thielen falls to me. So that means take Adam Thielen.
Yeah, that's right.
And
so you touched on DJ Moore for a minute, but you guys, are you high on the Panthers going into this season or no?
Nope.
No. That's weird that Mike would say that, but I just.
Well, I mean, you have to look at the team. They completely gutted most of the team. They drafted no. I don't know if this has ever happened, but they drafted no offensive players in this past year's draft. They drafted all defense. So let's say they end up starting 7 rookies on defense. That is tough. I mean, for the Panthers to be actually competitive, you're looking 2 to 3 years down the road. They're implementing an offense that has worked in the NFL before. Joe Brady was previously with the New Orleans Saints, and the Saints are the Saints. Their offense is very good, and the spread offense will work very well. Teddy Bridgewater, good quarterback, very serviceable, but is he the type of guy to be the decision maker? Can he go down to his second, third, fourth reads? Is he really that type of guy, or is he a first and second look guy and then check it down? We just don't know. But luckily they have Christian McCaffrey there, where look, they're not going to do well in the division that they're in when you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, New Orleans Saints, and then the Atlanta Falcons all vying for that top spot. The Panthers are the odd man out in that division.
I get the skepticism about the Panthers. I don't hold the defensive draft against them. I kind of like just investing and reinventing that defense that they were kind of banking on the last few years, but that just wasn't as good as it had been when they went to the Super Bowl. I mean, they got Derek Brown, who fell to them, who some people were saying was the best player in the draft. And then they get Yetur Gross-Matos, who also fell to them in the second round out of Penn State. And then they get a really good safety in Jeremy Chin. And those are all guys that can contribute right away. But then you also have, so then on the offensive side, you bring in Robbie Anderson. Christian McCaffrey can break a game open. It's going to come down to Teddy Bridgewater, who won, he was 5-0 as the Saints quarterback last year. So, and he did win when he was with Minnesota before he got hurt. He wasn't stellar. And he certainly wasn't stellar when he started for the Saints last year. But could he operate the offense? Could he manage the offense with 2 coaches, Matt Rule and Joe Brady, who know how to scheme an offense? I could see a path where the Panthers are competitive this year. I think at the very least they'll be super exciting just because of their youth, both at the coaching positions and across the roster.
Teddy Bridgewater. I think it comes down to Teddy Bridgewater ultimately because he's sort of the X factor there, and he reminds me a lot of a quarterback I was really fond of, Teddy Flemington, who played for Team Planning of America at the Rutgers Flag Football League, where it's like he's not the sort of quarterback that's going to shoulder the entire load and I won't slight him and say that he won't elevate the play of the people around him, but he's not the sort of guy that can, like, he's not a Cam Newton who they've had, like, that can sort of just change the game independently without anyone around him. But what's different is that he's got Christian McCaffrey. And I even think Robbie Anderson falls into the category where he sort of knows what he's got. He's got that Rob Schneider speed and like can just sort of like take the top off the defense. And if I think Teddy Bridgewater in a good system can have a lot of success, a lot like Teddy Flemington did with the talent around him, which means that I think they could be competitive, but maybe not Super Bowl champions. But I hope he proves me wrong.
I also like that their center, Connor Reddington, goes out for passes, so that's good.
Nobody's expecting that, but Rule implementing a new offense.
Surprisingly effective, though. No one thinks look at the center, and he's got hands, man.
That's it. PA all day, really. Rob Schneider. Everybody's probably thinking what movie you're talking about, Rob Schneider. He looks slow and
animal.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's great.
Wow, an animal reference. Okay, we're moving right along. Next pick on the clock is
Ted.
It's me, and so I was hoping Adam Thielen would fall here because he feels like a solid option. So this is Team 6. As a quick recap, I've got Michael Thomas, Kenyon Drake, and George Kittle. So I've sort of spread the wealth around various positions. I think running back is important, so I'm going to go for another running back here in the 4th round while there's still some quality players available. And I am loving James Conner right now. He's one of the few players left who is a true bell cow. Mike Tomlin loves to play the running back an entire drive, regardless of down. He's proven he's got hands, and more importantly, he's proven he can pass protect, which means that Ben Roethlisberger is going to want him on the field on 3rd downs way more than Benny Snell or any of the other scrubs they've got going on in the background. Connor is the guy in Pittsburgh until otherwise noted. He's on his a contract year, so he's motivated, or the Steelers are just going to run him ragged and send him on his way. So I see a bounce back here from Connor, maybe not to be like the 5th overall running back, but in the 4th round, give me some James Conner.
Yeah. Ted, do you see him? Do you see him on the Steelers next year?
I do. I think that he'll be like one of those rare sort of team friendly, like I understand the role. I want to be in Pittsburgh. Let's come to an agreement kind of players, which are fewer and further between. But he doesn't have. I mean, he was a Pitt guy.
Yeah.
And like the system is favorable for him. He's had success there, and I think they want some sort of veteran leadership in the locker room, and he surprisingly will be that, especially as Ben Roethlisberger retires in the next year or two. He could be like a Jerome Bettis situation, just sort of the guy that's there. Maybe not like he's not Willie Parkering through Super Bowl 40, but he's there.
Yeah, I think he's like
Willie
a
Parker
vital guy to the locker room. Honestly, I think he's just one of those guys that really gets it. And I loved him when he was with Pitt as well. So, all right, moving along here on the clock.
Yeah, James Conner's a great pick. I'm high on all the Steelers this year with Big Ben coming back and that defense. I mean, it's just going to create opportunities for that offense to produce. So here I got a pretty balanced team. Aaron Jones, Leonard Fournette, and then Juju Smith-Schuster. Speaking of Steelers, I'm gonna continue the balance and get another wide receiver here with a guy who is undervalued in my opinion, Keenan Allen, who produces every single year. I don't like Tyrod is not that much of a drop off from Philip Rivers, if at all. Mike Williams has proven not to eat into Keenan Allen's target share. He can play every position on the field. After earlier injury concerns in his career, he's been healthy for the last few years with some minor things here and there. So he's just a really solid wide receiver, especially in the 4th round.
Surprising to even see him on the board still. Keenan Allen's always a solid producer every year.
That's the one thing. So many people are devaluing Keenan Allen just because Philip Rivers isn't there anymore. But let the record show that Keenan Allen is one of the best route runners in the NFL right now. And it doesn't matter who's at quarterback because Tyrod Taylor is a very good quarterback, right? He just hasn't had a lot of chances to actually prove that and be the guy without having some high draft pick come in and take over for him. But he will find Keenan Allen. He will get him the ball and he will be just fine. 1,000+ yards, 5+ touchdowns. He'll be okay this year in fantasy. So sitting at team 4, I've got 3 stud running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, Josh Jacobs, and Nick Chubb. My wide receiver options right here aren't that strong. The best wide receiver available would be Allen Robinson, coming off 124 receptions last year. I like him in Pittsburgh, especially with Nick Foles there. I could think about taking Zach Ertz. He's available, or I could say screw it and go with Melvin Gordon and just have studs at running back, which is very possible. But I have to do the smart thing and grab a strong wide receiver 1, which will be Allen Robinson.
Yeah, bear down.
That's probably the right pick.
Yeah. All right, Ted.
There's one of those teams that I'm really intrigued by this year.
Yeah.
And Allen Robinson is one of those players that I'm never intrigued by, ever.
Even though he produced.
But yeah, he goes in that same exact category, where he produces every year way above his star power. I don't think he's quite the star that Mike Evans is, but they're sort of similar in that way where like you forget they are there, but 124 catches later and you're like, okay, I can't bench this guy. It's like he's scoring every week. All right, so that's my final pick of the first 4 rounds. I got Alvin Kamara, Miles Sanders, Odell Beckham. So I got a boomer bust thing going on. So I'm going to roll with that. Let's see who can really like up the ante here. And I'm going to go with another wide receiver in Tyler Lockett.
Love that pick.
I think that he fits in well. Maybe he's a little bit more of a high floor guy than the rest. Well, I guess he can maybe have high floors, but I like Tyler Lockett in this youthful and sort of speed team I've got going on here, where I'm hoping to just like get a few 25, 30-point games out of these guys once or twice a year and pair those together. Like you said, if 3 of them happen on a week, I win the league, or I win the week. So Tyler Lockett.
Love that. That's a really awesome pick. I love both the receivers in Seattle this year, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I think they have a really good rapport with Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson is just he's a stud at quarterback in Seattle. Even when he has no weapons, the offense runs through him no matter what, and he's just awesome. So sitting here with the second team, I've got a pretty well-balanced team, very similar to Team 6 with Ted. I have a good running back, really good receiver, and an awesome tight end. So I'm probably going to want to double up on either my running back position or my wide receiver position. But looking at the wide receivers and the running backs, there's some question. DJ Moore is still on the board, who we all know I'm not that high on. Melvin Gordon is available. He's probably my top choice. Chris Carson is there. I don't like Chris Carson in Seattle, especially with the addition of Carlos Hyde that they made this offseason. Zach Ertz and A.J. Brown are potential. I could double up on tight ends, like having 2 of the top tight ends in the NFL. That's intriguing, but Dallas Goedert is in Philadelphia, which takes a lot of the target share away from Zach Ertz. So I have to do the smart thing here and just take A.J. Brown, who I think is going to have a very good year with Tennessee. He averaged over 20 yards per catch last year as a rookie. And going into next year, having, Derrick Henry there, obviously Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, he's going to see plenty of opportunities, and the play action game is going to work really well for that speedster.
Yeah, I think some people might be surprised at that, but he came on so strong last year, and then just another, whatever this offseason is, but just another year with Tannehill is only gonna benefit him. He's a bona fide player and worthy of a 4th round pick. So here now, back at the turn, I'll get 2 picks, but we'll just pick one. So I got McCaffrey, Gurley, and Kenny Golladay, who are all, those are all pretty high ceiling guys. Melvin Gordon, I'm concerned about Philip Lindsay. DJ Moore, I'm also just not that high on, maybe to my own detriment. Zach Ertz, as you mentioned, Dallas Goedert is there. And I feel like, maybe when it comes back around, I don't know if Darren Waller is going to be there, but he might be. But I also like a lot of sleeper tight ends late. So I'm comfortable waiting on that position. Cortland Sutton, Calvin Ridley, Mark Andrews, Robert Woods. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to take a guy who I know will put up points. I'm sure I can get a quarterback later, but maybe I'm also just taking him here so we can talk about him as Dak Prescott, because I think he's going to have an excellent season under Mike McCarthy. All he got was CeeDee Lamb to increase his passing options, and he's going to be super motivated this year because of all the contract disputes. So I'm really high on Dak Prescott. I think 4th, 5th round. He's probably not going to be around when he comes back 19 picks later. So I don't mind reaching for him just a little bit here and taking Dak. So now you got Dak, Christian McCaffrey, Gurley, and Kenny Galladay. So I feel like that's a pretty good core to work around.
In particular, the fact that you have the next pick, like maybe you would have used the first one on a different guy and then Dak, but like you will still get another running back or wide receiver or tight end to fill out your roster. And with Dak in there, I like it a lot. Like 4th round is probably a little early, but this is the last pick, and really you could look at it as the first pick in the 5th round, knowing that you won't have the pick for 19 more. So
yeah, and I think the pick after there is a wide receiver, running back probably, and there's some decent options. Might be a reach, but there's some options.
Right, but why not lock down on quarterback? I think that we kind of discussed, even in just like actual being a quarterback and winning football games perspective, like Prescott is kind of that number 3-4 with Watson. And then it's sort of a drop off from there as far as the QB position goes.
Yeah. And at least in our league, like this is the time when there's a run on quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So there's no way that Prescott makes it back to me in the 6th round or whatever.
Yeah, especially with Jackson and Mahomes off the board, it's FOMO. It's fear of missing out. So a lot of teams, a lot of owners who are playing fantasy, they'll just be like, "Oh my God, like 3 quarterbacks just went off the board. Like I got to take one now." Which, if I could give advice to anyone, it's don't panic, especially when it comes to quarterback FOMO. You'll be fine because there are plenty of other ones down there. If it comes to a position like running back, get a running back. Definitely be scared if running backs are flying off the board because there's not a whole lot of talent in the later rounds for running backs. So be scared of that. But quarterbacks, you can easily wait because the difference between a Dak Prescott and let's say a Tom Brady in the grand scheme of things will probably end up being maybe 20 points.
So just to pick your brain a little bit, guys, we just talked about AJ Brown. I got another AJ maybe to throw at you here. AJ Green, still, obviously on the board and could be a reach for the next couple of rounds. But and since we're always talking about value at the quarterback position, Joe Burrow coming in. What are we thinking on that connection? Possibly a resurgence for AJ Green. Are we thinking high on the Bengals, or what thoughts on them?
I think somebody's going to get him here in the mid rounds. 5, 6, maybe 7. I think people have forgotten about him because of his injuries the last few years and because the Bengals have stunk. But whoever gets him in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, probably 6th or 7th round, is going to feel really, really good about that. That said, you only need to talk to people who have drafted AJ Green the last few years to see how that plays out by the end of the year.
Yeah, no, I've been stung by that myself, but I don't know. I think, Joe Burrow is one of those guys. I imagine somebody will pick him up late just on a flyer because you don't know what he's going to produce. But from everything that I've seen from that kid in college, just doing everything right and just playing unbelievably well in the biggest spotlight, the best game, the biggest pressure games against the most athletic defenses. The kid just been a stunner. So
he's a true gamer. And honestly, I feel bad for Ted, but luckily enough, the Steelers have a very good defense to compete with that. But let's talk about the Bengals wide receiving core here for a second. Okay. Obviously AJ Green, who we know who he is, right? He's going to come back. He had a year off. He's going to be healthy. When he's healthy, he's one of the best wide receivers the NFL has ever seen as far as talent. Maybe the numbers aren't always there, but he is a true talent at wide receiver. They've had Tyler Boyd, who over the last 2-3 seasons has turned into a very solid number 2 wide receiver. I mean, he posted back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and he's been a baller, even without AJ Green on the opposite side of him. So that just shows you that he can take over as a true X receiver, which is the number 1 wide receiver spot. So you have them. They drafted T. Higgins, who was a very talented wide receiver at Clemson. And we've seen Clemson put out just wide receiver after wide receiver in the NFL over the last couple of years. DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams, whatever. I'm off the top of my head. I can't remember the other guys. But, so you add him into the mix. And let's not forget about John Ross, who, by the way, is one of the fastest human beings in the NFL. And before he got hurt last year, he had like 2 multiple touchdown games, and we just lost Connor. But John Ross has game-breaking speed, and if he can stay healthy, which he hasn't been able to do over the last couple seasons, he's going to score touchdowns, which he's proven in a few games over the last couple seasons. And then you have who's that guy? Alex something, that little white kid. He's even shown flashes of talent. Now they did lose Tyler Eifert, but Joe Mixon's there. Giovanni Bernard, who's an excellent pass catcher. Connor's back.
What's that tight end's name?
CJ Uzuma.
Yeah, he's not a bad player.
Yeah. He's a pretty good player. So that offense at the skill position is very set. You have huge question mark on the offensive line. They drafted Jonah Williams in 2018, so he comes back healthy after missing the entire season last year. But that offense has a potential to do some good things, I would say.
And that, like, just as a team-wide thing, they brought over a bunch of players from the defensive players from the Vikings.
Exactly.
So, and I don't
which you would think Mike Zimmer's still coaching the Bengals, but
yeah, right,
he's not.
We don't necessarily know yet how Zach Taylor is going to be as a coach, but I think we'll find out pretty soon this year because he has enough talent to be competitive. I think Joe Burrow is a rare rookie in that he might be able to compete right away because he was playing in that pro style offense and because he is so talented, and because he has so many talented people around him. So I think we'll learn a lot about Zach Taylor this year.
Yeah, in most scenarios, I'd be super high on the idea of AJ Green sort of coming in and seeing, like, we spent the first overall pick on a quarterback that has every ability to be a transcendent talent in this league, and sort of like really sort of mentoring him as far as like how the locker room works and like sort of getting in his ear early and building that chemistry. I think that, like, if anyone's going to do it, it would be a guy who has been around. He's 31, 32 now, which, on the flip side has a little bit of concern. Like, does he still have the speed that he used to have? Like, where is he really going to be? The thing that, like, I still have question marks about, and maybe I'm perceiving him incorrectly, but, like, I don't think Andy Dalton was really the problem. Like, I don't think that their quarterback play was so bad as many of these, like, first overall pick quarterbacks come and supplant someone who is just not doing anything, like hurting their team and not just sort of like keeping them alive. Dalton has proven over the last 10 years to not be the exceptional talent, and maybe he needs a better system. And if that's the case, well, then, like, I sure hope Burrow is, or else he's walking into a system or a offense or something that's just like doesn't foster wins. I don't know. The Bengals are a little bit of an anomaly to me. I feel like they've underperformed based on the talent they have on their roster, even on both sides of the ball. I do think that Burrow is probably an upgrade. He's got a little bit more spark than Dalton anyway at this point. And it's just sort of a changing of the guard. It's got that, like, uplifting appeal. I think that the locker room feels it. Like, this is the dawning of a new era that could be hopefully 15 years, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's tough. Like, their offensive line isn't great. I mean, and that's even, Joe Mixon is still at 1,000-yard rusher, but their offensive line has been a weak spot. Their defense historically has been a weak spot. So they're probably a year or two away from competing for the AFC North crown. And they'll probably invest a lot in the offensive line and their defense in subsequent drafts. But but I agree. Andy Dalton wasn't the problem. Even when they were making their playoff runs, people wanted to blame Andy Dalton for it because they had a pretty good defense and they had AJ Green, but they didn't have as much support around him as Joe Burrow will have now. So you're right. It's not going to be like a magic bullet. It's not going to be like a perfect fix just to plug Joe Burrow in there. But talent. I think the talent speaks for itself. So they will be another one of those teams that's exciting, but may not win a ton of games.
I don't think it's necessarily all about the talent. I think one thing that the Bengals have lacked over the last couple of years with Andy Dalton, and this is not a knock on Andy Dalton because I think he's very talented as a quarterback, but what I never saw out of him was that fire, that real passion to really rally everyone behind him. And Joe Burrow, you've seen it through college. And you've seen it now kind of early in the NFL, at least the way that he talks. He's got a fire lit under his ass, right? And he is a true competitor. I think everyone in that locker room is going to rally behind this kid, especially with the resume that he brings to the locker room. And they're just going to get behind him. He's going to be a leader early and often. That's why they got Andy Dalton out of town as soon as they drafted him. So he's the guy. I mean, this is probably the closest situation that we've had in a long time to Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts when they brought him in, where it was really such a defunct organization. And then you bring in a quarterback who can really change the culture within the locker room and within the organization to really become winning. You may see him struggle early on like Peyton Manning did. Peyton Manning still has the most interceptions as a rookie quarterback, I believe. So you could see something like that out of Joe Burrow, but don't be quick to write him off and just say, oh, it's a failed experiment.
Is that enough Bengals talk for you?
No, not enough.
Teddy, could we open it up for every division rival? I would like to go back to the Browns if we could.
Actually, next would be the Baltimore Ravens, but I don't think we want to get Ted started on them.
No.
I don't know what they're going to do with Lamar Jackson. God, that guy stinks.
Yeah. Why? I still don't know why they let Joe Flacco go.
Yeah. Anywho.
Okay, so let's round this whole thing out because we're getting a little long in the tooth here. So one thing that we did last week as a test run for this whole live format is we kind of went through each one of our teams that we picked. And which team that we feel we were most comfortable with and maybe least comfortable with. So, Ted, let's start it off with you. Which one of your teams you feel most comfortable with, that you like the most, and which one of your teams you hate the most?
So, my winner and my loser. See, I actually kind of like all my teams. I'm a bit of a homer here. I think that the team that I'm most excited about is got to be my boomer bust team, which is Alvin Kamara, Miles Sanders, Odell Beckham, and Tyler Lockett. This could all go to hell really fast, but that's there's a lot of star power there, and any one of those I feel like could be 1,500-yard seasons in their respective categories. So that's my favorite team. Let's go around on those first, I think.
Sure.
All right. I would say my favorite team is the balanced team. So it's Aaron Jones, Leonard Fournette, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Keenan Allen. Those are four players who have all been top 10 in their position for more than one. Maybe not Aaron Jones, but he came off a phenomenal season last year. Top 10 in their position for more than one season. All of their fortunes are looking up. Maybe you can say Keenan Allen with Tyrod Taylor, but I don't view it that way. Juju gets Ben back. Fournette gets Jay Gruden as the offensive coordinator. No competition in the backfield. And then Aaron Jones just has another year in Matt LaFleur's system. He only caught 50 balls last year. You have to assume that's going to go up. So I feel like those are four pretty no fail guys. Jones, Fournette, Juju, and Keenan Allen.
I like that. My favorite team is almost eerily similar to my actual fantasy team that I had last year. Julio Jones, Tyreek Hill, and Patrick Mahomes were all three starters that I had on my team last year. Unfortunately, Patrick Mahomes missed 2 or 3 games. Tyreek Hill missed 4 or 5 games. So I never really got to see the true potential. But for that pair, all four of those guys, even including Le'Veon Bell, those are just must-watch players, and that would make Sundays really exciting. You're engaged. Just 4 players, you only have to watch 3 games, which is also pretty exciting and easier on yourself. But I think the potential of that team is huge. So Ted, we'll get back to you. Who's your loser?
My loser is going to be Team 9, which is Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Amari Cooper, and David Johnson. All of these players feel a little like, yeah, but. And that's not a way to feel after your first 4 rounds. And really it goes down to the honorable mention. By comparison, the other choice is a team I almost made as my favorite. Michael Thomas, Kenyon Drake, George Kittle, and James Conner is just like, yeah, like that team feels good to me, even though it's not as exciting to watch on Sunday as Team 3 is. But Team 9's like, I don't know, Henry, but he doesn't catch passes, and Eckler, but like, can he be durable enough? And David Johnson, but like, what happened last year? And Amari Cooper, but like, he faded off too. Like all these players could like fade into oblivion real quick.
Yeah. My least favorite team is right next to that, Team 8. That's Joe Mixon, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, and Cooper Kupp. And it could be a fine team. I personally, I just felt like I was picking by default at those slots. Like pick 8 just sucks. Because you're not getting your favorite guy, and then you also don't want to reach for like the guy who you really like. And so yeah, I think Devontae Adams is going to have a great year. Mike Evans should. Cooper Kupp should. Joe Mixon always does, but I'm just not that like outside of Devontae, I'm just not that excited about any of those players.
Yeah, I'm kind of right with you, Matt. Number 4 is also a pretty tough spot to be in compared to number 8, because a lot of the top running backs are off the board, and you just kind of feel like pressured into taking one of those guys, just because you don't want to reach for another guy at that spot. And another thing I don't like to do with my teams is focus solely on one position, where I drafted 3 running backs in the first 3 rounds. There's no balance there. Luckily, I got Allen Robinson, who's a very serviceable wide receiver, but Ezekiel Elliott is going to get points. Josh Jacobs is going to get points. Nick Chubb is going to get points. I should feel very confident about that. But me personally, I like more balance in my team. And at that point, it was lacking that balance for me. So I'd probably go with that team as my least favorite.
Yeah, you would hope there that maybe a guy that's different than Allen Robinson, a wide receiver that's different than Allen Robinson, falls to you.
Like a Cooper Kupp, I would have been a lot more confident with.
Which very well could happen in a real draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so let's Connor, what do you think about the auto draft? As you can kind of weigh in on that, and I honestly think the auto draft did pretty well.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's probably one of my more like favorite teams that's on here. Like, Michael Thomas, stud. Kittle, as far as I don't want to say he's not like the. Wait, oh no, I'm sorry. Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah. Okay, so not Kittle.
I like my team too.
I hate George Kittle, James Conner, stupid pick. Lamar Jackson. I just think he's the really. For me, like coveted. Like I just think, I know Mike said that it's ridiculous to kind of assume that somebody's going to either equal or top what they produced last season when they have this radical MVP type campaign. But I don't know. I mean, he seems like he's got a good team in place, and it's not like you can, kind of what to expect from them, but it's really tough to game plan for a guy like that. And I think he's going to put up a shitload of points.
If there's a guy who's going to repeat, it could be Lamar Jackson, just because of how effective of a runner he is and how many touchdowns he scores.
And he's
and frankly, like before. You never know how they're going to adapt as far as what Harbaugh is going to do, especially after the disappointing that playoff run. And Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, you've got guys that have potential to just be absolute studs. Obviously, Hopkins being a little bit of a question mark, moving to a new team. But Thielen is just a consistent producer. I think he's, a really good player. So I kind of look at that auto draft team, and I'm looking at these other teams that you jabronis picked, and I'm kind of feeling pretty good about it. So I'm going to go.
Yeah. I think it's fair.
Yeah,
I'm feeling
looking
good
at the
about
auto
that.
draft is a very well balanced team, which is what I just talked about. You have Dalvin Cook, who is a top running back in the NFL. You have 2 top wide receivers, and you have a top quarterback who, guess what, was also number 6 or 7 in rushing last year. So
Right.
essentially, you have 2 running backs, a quarterback, and 2 top wide receivers. That's 5 players in 4 picks. So that's, there's
that's
no
an interesting,
question there.
a good point. And I think that's the issue with this team right now is, like we said, it's 2 running backs, but it's not. There's only one, and you have to roster. In our league, luckily, it's 1 running back and a bunch of flexes. But and running back is Dalvin Cook, who's got some holdout threat, sort of underscoring it. So this is the sort of team where you're like, you just plan on spending 50 like draft dollars or free agent dollars on whatever running back gets hurt, you get that handcuff. Or you got to like draft 3 running backs right now. Get Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's been on the board. He's sitting there, like take a flyer on someone like that. But like you have to fill out that running back position because your team looks awesome, but you're going to be hurt so bad if Dalvin Cook isn't the guy you want him to be.
Yeah, right. Well, it just goes to show you that draft position doesn't necessarily matter that much because our favorite teams are 3, 5, 10, and then auto draft was 7.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of all over the board, and not neither of the first 2 picks, which everybody covets.
Yeah, it's just tough. There's so much pressure if you're picking early, especially in a complete redraft league. For us, we do keepers, obviously, so it's a little bit different. But there's so much pressure, especially if you're picking in the first 3. It's like you really have to get that pick because there's so much talent, like on that bottom side of the board, and especially like on that swing. Personally, I love picking towards the end because you can get 2-star players like essentially back to back and really have a solid core to your team.
Yeah, you're
you can
able to
get
implement more
Antonio Brown and
strategy.
David Johnson.
Right. Definitely that. Yeah, it almost like there are picks that are better than other picks, but you don't know where they're going to happen on the draft board.
Exactly.
It really depends on how the talent shakes out, like at the moment you're drafting, like how people have been doing even in the preseason and stuff up to that point. And then also just how like the other people in your draft are picking. You never know like when that run's going to happen. And if you happen to like be right after a run of 4 or 5 receivers and all of a sudden a solid running back, falls to you in the second round, like good on you. It doesn't matter. You picked 8th there and 2nd overall or whatever. Like there isn't a better spot, honestly.
Yeah.
Do some research, know who you're playing with, and know who you're drafting with, essentially, because you can easily, as Matt alluded to earlier with one of the picks, I knew that he was high on a guy, so I want to steal his thunder a little bit because I knew he'd be gone if I let him go past me at the end of the 2nd round with Chris Godwin. You don't want to miss out on talent and let that talent go somewhere else. It's just like the NFL, right? If I know Matt's picking after me, who has won the last 4 out of 7 league championships, right? I got to try and keep talent out of his roster. And if I don't, then I failed at drafting, honestly.
Yep. Even if it means you have 2 stud tight ends, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you got to fill that flex position, and that's a defensive move too.
Yeah, you can't go wrong just picking the most talented player or the highest ceiling guy on the board. Just go with your gut. Don't overthink it or try to like balance your roster because your roster is going to change so much over the course of the season.
Yeah.
And when I drafted Aaron Jones, I just predicted that Matt would try and come in. He downplayed him like the whole time. And he said, I think he's got an injury problem. I think he's going to stink.
He did have an injury problem. And I did think he was going to stink.
I don't know how sold you were on all that the negative things that you were saying about Aaron Jones. So,
well, I mean, that just
he might be a keeper.
He had injury concerns going into last year. They had a new coach going into last year. Those are all things we just kind of throw out to like knock a guy, but it could just be like a great thing. It's like, yeah, he's finally healthy now, and he's in the right system now.
Right.
Like those, you can just spin anything any way you want.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of the NFL. There's so much stuff to talk about, so many different schemes, different matchups, defenses, everything like that. So, it is what it is. But I think now is a good point as any. Cut it off. We've ran a little long, but that's good. We had some pretty good conversation. Thank you to everyone who watched. Thank you guys for being here. This was a great conversation. Connor, thank you for keeping us in line and on time.
That didn't work. We ran long. Sorry, guys. Oh man.
No.
C plus
on time with the minute drafting. I think that was really good. I would like to personally, I think we continue this draft next week, do 5 through 8. I think that'd be a good start and stay consistent with our schedule. Be back here next week, 9:00 Wednesday.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll do that. Thank you to everyone who watched. Thank you guys for doing this, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.
See ya.
Righteous.